My name is Atsushi Inaba. I am the producer of Okami. Originally, our original concept, believe it or not, was not to use this sumie Japanese style of painting at all. We were still looking to, aiming to get across the idea of the beauty of nature, but we were going to do it in a very realistic fashion. And actually, to go a little further into that, what originally became my inspiration for using that type of graphical style is I was watching them develop the Resident Evil remake on the GameCube, and I took a look at what they were working on, and I thought, wow, that would look fantastic if I took a similar level of technology and a similar artistic style. And when we initially tried to implement that sort of graphical style, unfortunately the PlayStation 2 wasn't necessarily up to our lofty goals. So we kind of hit a dead end there, and then we were thinking, you know, what can we do now with the graphical style since our original idea won't work? And one of the designers right around that time had sketched up a design for the main character, sort of as a joke or a prank. He had done it in this sumie painting style, and I took a look at it and I thought, you know, this might not be just a joke. This could look really great if it was moving in 3D. Let's try it and see what happens. And that's how the current graphical style was born. Going back to what I was saying previously about the art style, we decided to go with the sumie, the Japanese painting look. And if you look at art books and whatnot, you'll notice a lot of that is monochromatic. It's just black and white. It's black ink on parchment paper. And originally we thought we would make the game look like that, and that we would have the player restore color to that sort of painting. And then we started thinking that just wasn't enough. That wouldn't necessarily be interesting for the player, and we kind of moved back to the nature aspect that had originally inspired us to make this game. And we decided to take a similar concept and make it that the nature had been destroyed or somehow harmed in this world, and it would be the player's goal to restore that nature to make plants and animals return to where they had been driven from. And to talk a little bit about how that is implemented in the gameplay is the whole area, the whole game world here has been affected by some sort of curse that has made it difficult or impossible for anything to live there, be it plants, animals, people, what have you. And through the player's actions, through Amaterasu's adventure, the player is able to sort of restore this sort of life energy and this life force that allows plants, animals, and people to live there. By doing so, you can open up new areas to have new adventures and continue on that cycle. You get to one area, restore nature there, move on to the next area, restore nature there. These other areas would have been inaccessible had you not restored nature in the prior section. The celestial brush powers are something that the main character Amaterasu had possessed from ancient times. But in the game, you'll get to see more of this. But 100 years ago, these powers, these 13 different celestial brush powers, were lost. Amaterasu lost these powers. They were scattered about. And then Orochi, the villain character, one of the villain characters in the game, comes back 100 years later, destroys all nature in the area. So Amaterasu comes back to deal with this, and Amaterasu then must go and recollect the 13 powers that had been lost previously. And using the celestial brush, the player can defeat enemies, interact with backgrounds and solve puzzles, and use it to get to areas they hadn't been to before. So that's sort of the core of the adventure is expressed through that celestial brush. And to speak in a little more detail about the celestial brush, the concept behind it is that good art has sort of a life of its own, is the idea. And in this particular game, drawing things with the celestial brush and making things come to life and sort of imbuing them with this sort of life force is something that only gods can perform in this world. So that's sort of the idea behind that. Yeah, we do feel the celestial brush is perhaps the main focus of the game, but you're absolutely right in saying it's not the only aspect of the gameplay. There are combat scenes. The player must wage combat with monsters that have invaded this world. They do so using a variety of different weapons and equipping them, sometimes in tandem to produce new combos, and these are all done independent of the brush, although you can use that in battle. But there's sort of a standard combat system you'd expect to see in a game of this type, and it's in there, and it is a very complete and solid system. There are also villagers and people you will meet throughout the game that have different hopes and dreams that you, being a god, are able to restore, and that will then net you experience points and sort of life force that you can then use to power yourself up. So, you have the celestial brush, but you also have action game elements, and as far as the combat is concerned, you have adventure elements as far as interacting with NPCs and helping them out is concerned, and then you also have the sort of RPG elements you'd expect from an RPG, which would involve kind of powering up your character, leveling up, and getting stronger as you go through the game. Just to go further into the combat system a little bit, there's all sorts of combos and moves that can be done. There's a huge variety of weapons, 3 main types, and then multiple different weapons inside each type. Each one can be powered up separately. You can purchase new moves to use in combat. We sort of deliberately made this game in a fashion that someone who's not necessarily into action games, doesn't play a lot of games, can still play the game, enjoy it, and finish it. But the type of person who's really into action games, who wants to learn all the moves and power up their weapons, there's plenty for them to do as well, and they can have the deep gameplay experience they would be seeking as well. Speaking of the release, we are gearing up to finish the Japanese version. It's at the very tail end of development right now, and it's set to release in April. The North American version is going to take some more time. We're working really hard to get it properly localized and to fine-tune it. And we're looking to possibly even add some features that we didn't have time to put into the Japanese version, so that will take some more time. Right now we're aiming for summer, and as soon as I have some more concrete information, you'll be the first to know. As far as a message to gamers as to what they should look forward to, I've noticed a sort of trend lately in games that there's been an awful lot of violent games coming out, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that necessarily, but my goal here is to put out something that's a little different, give people an opportunity to try something that they may not have tried before, and maybe the overarching theme throughout this whole game would be beauty, and I'm not just talking, surface beauty of the graphical style or anything like that, but the sort of beauty that comes with the rebirth of nature and things like that, in a very philosophical sense, sort of deeper meaning of beauty and what nature means to people. Of course, that being said, my next game might very well be extremely violent, so maybe I'm not in a position to say that after all.